Section 24 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Inferno, Canto 24. The Eighth Circle, Fraud. The Seventh Trench, Thieves.
When in the youthful season of the year the sun beneath Aquarius warms his locks, while southward now the nights pursue their way, and when the hoar-frost draws upon the ground the counterfeit of her white sister's face, though shortly lasts the temper of her pen, the peasant, lacking provender, gets up, looks out, and seeing all the country white, slaps himself on the thigh, returns indoors, and walking to and fro laments, poor wretch, not knowing what to do. Then later on, returning out again, recovers hope, on seeing that the world has shortly changed its face, and taking down his shepherd's staff, out to their feeding drives his tender sheep. Even thus my teacher filled me with dismay when I beheld such trouble in his face. Thus too the plaster quickly reached the wound, for when we had attained the ruined bridge, my leader turned to me with that sweet look which at the mountain's foot I first perceived. First, having well surveyed the ruined arch, after some counsel taken with himself, his arms he opened, and took hold of me. And like a man who ponders while he acts, and always seems to look ahead, even so, while upward to the top of one great rock he pushed me, he sought out another crag, and said,
"Take hold of that one next, but first see whether it be fit to bear thy weight."
No path was this for one who wore a cloak, since scarcely could we two, though he was light, and I was pushed, ascend from rock to rock. And had the slope on that bank not been shorter than on the other, I know not of him, but I would surely have been overcome. But since the whole of Malebolge slopes down to the opening of the lowest well, such is the nature of each trench's banks, that one is high and low the following one, and yet we reached at length the ridge above, from which the crag's last rock projects. My breath was so exhausted from my lungs, when up at last, that I could go no further. Nay, on arriving, I sat down at once.
"Thus henceforth must thou rid thyself of sloth,"
my teacher said,
"for one attains not fame sitting on cushions or neath canopies, and he that lives without attaining it leaveth on earth such traces of himself as smoke doth in the air or foam in water. Therefore get up, o'ercome thy troubled breath with that soul energy which wins all fights unless it sink beneath its body's weight. A longer stairway must be climbed. 'Tis not enough that these stairs have been left. If then thou understand me, let it profit thee."
I thereupon arose, and showed myself better equipped with breath than I had felt, and said, "Go on, for I am strong and bold." We took the pathway up along the crag, which rocky was, narrow and hard to climb, and steeper far than was the one before. Not to seem weak, I talked as on I went. This from the next trench caused a voice to come, which was incapable of forming words. Though I was on the summit of the arch which crosses here, I know not what it said, but moved to anger seemed the one who spoke. Downward I looked, and yet my living eyes could not attain the bottom for the dark. Hence, "Teacher, try to reach the following ridge," said I, "and let us from the wall descend. For as I hear, but do not understand, so, looking down from hence, I make out nothing."
"No other answer give I thee,"
he said,
"save that of action, for a fair request ought to be met by deeds without a word."
We climbed down from the bridge's further head, where to the 8th embankment it is joined, and then the trench was clearly shown to me, and in it I beheld a frightful throng of snakes, and of so weird a kind that still the memory of them freezes up my blood. Let Libya and her sand no longer boast, for though she breed Chelidri, Jaculi, with Cencri, Phareae, and Amphisbaenae, ne'er with all Ethiopia did she show, nor e'en with what above the Red Sea lies, either so many or such evil plagues. Among this cruel and most dismal swarm people were running nude and terrified, and with no hope of hole or heliotrope. Their hands were bound behind their back with snakes, whose tail and head were thrust between their loins, and tied together in a knot in front. Then lo, a serpent, hurled himself at one who near our bank was standing, and transfixed him there where the neck is to the shoulders joined. Never were or or e so quickly written, as he took fire, and burning up must needs turn wholly into ashes as he fell. Whereat, though thus destroyed upon the ground, the dust, assembling of its own accord, turned instantly into the self-same man. So likewise, as great sages have declared, the phoenix dies, and then is born again, as she approaches her 500th year. She feeds through life on neither herbs or grain, but on a momum only and incense tears. Her final swaddling bands are nard and myrrh. And as is he who falls, nor knoweth how, by demon force which pulls him to the ground, or other inhibition binding man, and who on getting up again looks round wholly bewildered by the great distress which he has felt, and as he looks heaves sighs, such was that sinner after he had risen. O power of God, how truly just thou art, that in revenge dost deal such blows as these. Thereat my leader asked him who he was, and he replied,
Into this wild ravine I reigned from Tuscany not long ago. Mule that I was, a beast's life, not a man's, I liked. I'm Vanni Fucci, called the Beast. For me, Pistoia was a worthy den.
Then tell him not to slip away, I said, and ask what fault thrust him down here, for I once saw in him a man of blood and strife. The sinner then, who understood, feigned not, but turned toward me both mind and face, and said, as with a sudden shame he coloured up,
That thou hast caught me in the misery in which thou seest me, gives me greater pain than that which took me from the other life. I can't refuse what thou dost ask of me. I'm placed thus low, because 'twas I who robbed the vestry known for its fair ornaments. A deed once falsely put upon another. But now, lest thou enjoy this sight of me, if thou art ever out of these dark lands, thine ears to my announcement ope, and hear. Pistoia first despoils herself of Neri, then Florence changes folk and government. From Valdimacra Mars draws forth a bolt, by turbid clouds enveloped. Next, with wild and cruel storm, a battle will be fought upon the Picene plain. Then suddenly the bolt will cleave the mist in such a way that every Bianco will thereby be wounded. And this I've said, that it may give thee pain.
End of Inferno, Canto 24.